Thank you for joining us today as we discuss our Head Start for Engineer to Order solution built on Dynamics 365 Business Central. Joining us today, we have Jean Bauer, Ron Skalski, and Tim Tucker. Jean is based outside of Chicago. She's an account executive at Sikich with over 30 years of experience helping manufacturers take their business to the next level. Ron is based out in Illinois as well. He's been a partner at Sikich for the last 6 years and our subject matter expert on manufacturing and engineer to order. And finally, we have Tim Tucker based outside of LA, who is the partner and director of professional services for our Dynamics 365 Business Central practice. And he's passionate about delivering solutions that solve business issues by coupling technology with smart business decisions. So thank you all for joining our discussion today. Really appreciate you. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right in. We have a lot of questions to get through. So Tim, let's go ahead and start with you. Manufacturing is a big industry with a lot of sub-verticals, the manufacturing processes and production strategies. So why did Sikich decide to focus on mid-market ETO manufacturers?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So, there's a healthy ecosystem of manufacturers and solutions for manufacturers, discrete and process manufacturing. But the engineer to order sub market for manufacturing is an area that we see as really underserved from a technology space and really not understood as well as you might think. And so when we developed expertise in-house around this through some, working with some of our clients that were in the space, we recognized that this was an area where we stood a little bit unique, and we have knowledge both from people like Ron on the team, and also accelerators that we've developed for Business Central that can meet the needs of this space.
So what are some of the major challenges that you see come up time and again when you're working with ETO clients?
So it's an interesting mix. We have ETO clients that are in the 20 million up to the 500 million range in dollars. So the size and the talent and the number of people using the system can vary quite a bit. One of the key issues is that we want to be able to include tracking and reporting of actual manufacturing costs against a project or a level within the job so that it can be appropriately monitored. Obviously, watching things like margin, completion of the project, anything that might do to improve the efficiencies within the company. User adoption is also really important. And so being able to have tools that are embedded within the system, like Power BI and Excel and Outlook, that would just make their lives easier is also key. In the vertical world, oftentimes something like an ETO is produced by a software manufacturer, and that's the only company that's going to be supporting you or making changes to the system, which is a huge burden on the organization. And it results in a lot of complexity and perhaps limited staff. So by being in the Microsoft ecosystem, you've got multiple people and multiple avenues that you can go down versus just that one software company that might be involved. There's also the need to have a lot of flexibility because each ETO, depending on the industry that you're in, might have different requirements that make their business unique. And so by having a Sikich accelerator or multiple Sikich accelerators, they've been specifically designed to be flexible and be able to be tweaked and changed to meet your specific requirements.
Ron, did you have anything else to add to that?
So yeah, we're trying to put up trying to display a lot of complex information together in a simple way that's easy to manage from a large scale. And what I kind of mean by that is that, engineer order, we're dealing with a lot of activities happening at the same time, a lot of things that get assembled and put together that need to work together, but they're also operating at separate times. So we need to use the traditional MRP production forecast you would see in a traditional ERP system, creating that or managing and tracking that information, but we still need to roll it up into a bigger picture for something when you're dealing with a large project. So that's what the kind of like the main focus of what this accelerator is doing for everybody, is that's trying to give you that flexibility and detail level information for when you need to do it on a small, as the guy on the floor is working on his component, he needs to see the information that he needs to get to build it or assemble it or whatever, whether it's a drawing, whether it's entering time against a timesheet, consuming components. It's all those things happening that they need to do at a small level, but we need to have all that information at the giant level of when this large machine, as an example, is being built, how all those things roll up to each other, and having that visibility is missing in a lot of these customers when they're coming to see us. And that's really what we're trying to, that's the start of what we're trying to show and help them through with this product.
So Sikich offers services for a number of different ERP solutions, right? Why did we choose to use Dynamics 365 Business Central as the foundation for our mid-market ETO solution?
Business Central has a built into it out of the box from Microsoft, has a fantastic financial system, manufacturing, distribution components. Kind of like what I touched about just a few minutes ago, is like those things are all really built in and are an important part of the core product that Microsoft provides. So we already had that as a starting point for this engineer order vertical tool that we can smooth the edges around those components to make them work together to show that level of information that an engineer order customer would need.
Tim, anything else to add?
Yeah, I think I'd add a couple things to that too. Ron mentioned a couple of the modules that come with the core product. The project accounting is also one that's key in there that we leverage in the engineered order stack. And the other thing about Business Central is it's this fantastic ecosystem it's a fantastic part of the Microsoft ecosystem. So it works so seamlessly with Microsoft Office and Power BI, the Power Platform. And it's also a really great platform for developing on. A lot of companies choose Business Central, regardless of the industry, because it's a product that gives them the opportunity to have it their way. They can pretty easily customize it if they want to, or work with a company like Sikich to make it really the way they want. And so for us, leveraging the core product that was already there from Microsoft, and then layering in the ecosystem and the ability and the flexibility for customization really makes it a very powerful platform for a product for us to deliver a solution on.
So we have an enterprise solution as well, right? Built for complex manufacturing companies, particularly they call out the industrial equipment manufacturing space, right? Mm-hmm. What makes our head start for ETO, like what type of company would be a good fit for our specific solution that we're talking about here today?
Well, I'll take that to start, and then certainly Gene and Ron, if you want to jump in. So the F&O product is a really good product. It tends to be the type of product that is more appropriate for larger companies. Typically when we look at what the budget for implementation services would be to do industrial equipment manufacturing on the F&O platform, you're starting at $1 million, $1.5 million for services, and that's the budget range that's typically out of range for a mid-market company, right? So that's where our head start for Business Central comes in at a more appropriate level of functionality. That's really what is needed for the mid-market. At a price point services that's more appropriate for a company of a little smaller size.
And I would just add to that ease of use and timeline to implement. So it's going to be a much longer timeline to implement a higher level or a tier 1 product than it would be for a product for the SMB marketplace.
Okay, that's good. It's good feedback. Yeah. So we have this head start approach here at Sikich. What is that? What is a head start? And how do we approach those projects differently than a traditional ERP implementation?
So our head start for engineer to order is comprised of a couple of things. One is we have a standard kind of generic solution design document that outlines the process flow of a typical engineer to order company. So we're not starting at zero. We're coming in saying this is kind of the best practice or a typical practice, plus some of our know-how added to around best practices. Why won't this work for you? And if it gets you 80% there, you're still ahead of the game from starting at zero. We have a standard set of configurations in a package that we deploy to the sandbox that has a bunch of the standard stuff that an ETO company would need pre-configured for them. And then we include a set of accelerators, again, our ETO solution set that layers on top of Business Central. So our core ETO functionality, our quality control solution, our warehousing solution, our shipping solution. There's probably a couple of others in there that I'm forgetting that Ron or Gene can fill in, but we're really bringing to the table a bunch of stuff that we know a company in this space needs to get you, way ahead of the game. So then what we're looking at is, okay, if this is the baseline and this is the stuff that you need, then we really only have to figure out, okay, what do you need for data conversion? What do you need for training? What does the actual testing and go live activities look like? And less time on the design and software piece. Ron or Gene, did you have anything you want to add there?
I was just going to mention that I think too that our building out of dashboard reporting, so that management level person who may not want to dig into all the details can have that dashboard in front of them on a daily basis to get the information they need.
Okay. I just wanted to point out, Tim mentioned a number of the accelerators we put into the solution to round out this whole thing. I mean, there certainly are solutions that other providers have that cover some of the same stuff, but the advantage to what we're doing with the Head Start is that we've already pre-configured them in ways that they are communicating well with each other. So, the warehouse handling, for example, knows how to ask the quality questions because we built them together to talk together. So while they can and will operate separately, what you get from pulling that stuff together as part of this Head Start with the pre-configured connections between them just takes the customer to the endpoint that much faster. It's one of the reasons we're able to do that.
So it's really helping to speed the implementation process, and we're really just delivering more value straight out of the gate than taking that time that one would traditionally take to figure out these things, and you're spending all that up front. All right, great. So Dynamics 365 Business Central was built with functionality for discrete manufacturing companies. How does the ETO process differ from how Business Central was traditionally built? Ron, I think you might be the best one to kind of speak to this.
Yeah, I can get started on that. So with discrete manufacturing, kind of touched about this at the little bit at the beginning, but really, what you're talking about is something that's being manufactured repetitively, and it's always the same input, always the same output. And it's going in, quantities of volume. That's where a discrete manufacturer really, they become efficient by trying to do the same thing over and over again in the products that they deliver. What you're going to see with an engineer order is that there's certainly a lot of those manufacturing activities that are going on, but they're always as part of something that grows together to make a much larger product. Some sort of, I think we've used the word equipment manufacturing already in this chat. There's, something that's usually with an engineer where you're building something that's big. Usually, it's personalized for that particular customer's installation. We often use the term "same as," but because your engineer order customer is typically building something that's they have a particular product line that they build, and they're making it unique for for that particular customer's experience. Swapping out a component, adding some sort of tray to the beginning or something like that kind of makes it all work together. So a lot of the concepts are the same, but what ends up happening with the engine order and what the IP accelerator we put together does is again, it pulls that information together and puts it in a way that again makes the job the focal point or the dashboard of the process. So to further explain that, when you're setting up a engineer order project, and there's going to be a very large multi-level bill of material if you looked at the whole thing, this piece of equipment that you're building together. But we're assembling in small components. And what the discrete system is going to do is try to kind of track all that stuff and reserve it and hold inventory at levels that are important for that production manufacturing order to work on. We need to roll that stuff up and have that visibility available through part of the project management of this engineer to order project that's being built. The accounting of it, I think Tim mentioned that project accounting. Having that ability to kind of see that stuff and roll all that together, not just as visibility, but tracking and tracing and creating quotes and putting all that stuff off of a single dashboard is really what this accelerator is doing for us.
So there's a number of accelerators you have all built within within our ETO HeadStart solution. Which ones really excite people when you're talking to them about them? Anyone in particular that kind of leaps off the page, and most of the clients you talk to are like, yes, that's what I needed.
Well, kind of the idea of using the project-based accounting as your dashboard to run everything is really kind of neat to them, because what our customers seem to be rolling off of is a lot of managing of this information off of spreadsheets and not having connectivity and communication with the rest of their organization. So you have a project manager that's trying to manage how their large project's going through a spreadsheet, and finding information, getting status updates, and updating this document is never accurate, right? And it's tedious and very time-consuming to get to. So having all the stuff that this accelerator has put together and make those connectivities automatic as part of their daily activity. So we mentioned you running manufacturing, you're assembling some sub-assembly, you report time against it. Instantly, as soon as that's reported, it's part of that project manager's reporting, because it's all built into one solution to collect and gather and display that information. So that's one thing that they really enjoy. Taking it even a step further back, we have that same model where we can use that. You can take an existing or prior project for even another customer, using as a base of a quote for someone new, your next project, and streamline that activity. So they can take their time to quote significantly down, because they can look at something they've done before and pull it right in and get current costs from the ERP system, right? Because that's what the ERP system is good for, right? Tracking your costs, making sure things are on time, managing all that stuff, as you create a new quote and being able to pull all that stuff, and it's already there. It's not something you have to extract from a solution and put it into your spreadsheet to calculate what you're going to charge your customer. I think those two components really ring well with them.
I think the other thing that's exciting about the accelerators is what Ron mentioned earlier, which is they're intertwined and they've been built together. So when I add a warehouse component that's a Sikich accelerator, it is recognizing the functionality in those other tools, which might not be available in something off of AppSource, such as warehouse management or quality control.
That's a good point, Jean. So how can HeadStart for ETO help restructure some of the slower design processes and reduce delays for our clients?
Yeah, I think I talked about that a little bit already with the whole idea of estimating, right? Because if you start with a blank slate and just maybe pulling spreadsheets together to figure out how to build an equipment, you're starting from scratch and having to do it all over again from the beginning. Having the ability to pull some of those components to pull in and start the development of that quote for a customer, I think speeds up the process for them a significant amount.
Might add in things like the fact that we have subcontracting functionality. So if there's certain things that you always subcontract out, you know what the costs of that were the last time. You can use that as your estimate for the next project that has those same needs, right? It's all part of what Ron was talking about, speeding up the process by using same as except or functionality like that as you're getting started on the next job.
You can even take the you start building out your components, your estimates, and a lot of times engineer order customers need to get more accurate quotes or up-to-date quotes from their vendors. So we've added the ability as part of the HeadStart function to take that estimate, which is still not a real document yet from an ERP perspective. You think about it, because you're not actively running on it yet. It's still something you're kind of building. you can shoot off quotes and get to multiple vendors and get cost estimates. And whoever wins the quote, whichever our request for proposal you get from the customer, or from your vendors, you accept that, updates and automatically updates that cost and rolls all that cost up to the top end of that project. So you get a cost on subcontracting some sub-step, and it gets approved. That cost is rolled up and updated at the top level, so you can see what the total cost and what your projected margin would be for making this product that you're quoting for your customer.
So change orders can be a real source of pain, right, for ETO organizations. How does HEADSTART help better manage some of the design changes and version controls?
So one of the components we've built is specifically structured around the workflow around change order management. So engineer change notices, things like that, as whether it's a customer started change to the requirements that's going to force some build change, or some quality issue it's found that you need to change route steps or add additional quality steps. We built an entire workflow around it, and it's part of one of the pre-configured extensions that are part of the HEADSTART set. So the customer, we put in a request for a change in that gets documented, rolls up the cost changes to that, so that we are seeing that live as activities are occurring. So this doesn't matter if it's a project that's still in estimate stage, or still if something that's out on the floor, it's already being active, right? Those cost changes and managing of that workflow, you don't know where you're sitting behind the desk on a spreadsheet. You don't know where this change that's going to affect the system might be. Just an example, one of the workflows is when you get this change request completed, it'll shoot out a note to to the project managers and the production floor manager that's operating the different steps that says, hey, a change occurred. You may need to check where you're at with this stuff and allow them to react to it without having to have a bunch of people on phone calls trying to wrangle everybody together and figure out what needs to be adjusted to handle it.
And Ron, you brought up an important term, extension. I'm not sure that everyone in the audience might know what that means. I don't know if Ron or Tim, you want to address what an extension is in the Microsoft world?
Sure. So when we develop on Business Central, I mentioned earlier that Business Central is a fantastic application platform for building custom solutions on. So when we do that, we don't change the core Microsoft code. Microsoft has a framework and architecture that lets you extend their solution or build brand new ones, but you don't change the core. So that when updates come from Microsoft, major updates are twice a year. The act of unhooking the custom extensions, applying the new updates, and then reapplying the extension back again should be a relatively painless process because you're not messing with the core code from Microsoft.
That's another plus with the HEADSTART model, if you think of it, because what we're doing with the multiple components that we put together that are tuned and talking to each other already, we're already testing that stuff for our customers as a set before Microsoft makes their major release out there. So, if you're pulling in a bunch of things off of iSource that don't normally work together, you're testing and working and redoing all the integrations that have to happen that might happen when Microsoft makes a change to their base product.
Interesting. Okay. I think that makes a lot of sense. What about inventory? That can make or break the profitability of a project, right? So how does HEADSTART for ETO make inventory management easier or better for project-based manufacturers?
So again, we think about this dashboard, this job that we've been talking about a couple times now. We have exposed visibility into their things where you can actually reserve components to, your inventory on hand to maybe one of the sub-assembly steps. And the nice thing about that is that when you're looking at that dashboard view of it, you can see that you've reserved stuff on hand, reserved it to a purchase order. You can kind of see where it is without having to dig deep into where a sub-assembly is at inside the workflow. So from that management dashboard of the job, you can see that I've got all my product reserved to inventory, or I've already built some of it and it's been consumed and it's rolled up into its assembly level product to be consumed into an upper level product, right? And it just kind of rolls up forward. So that all that visibility is really, right at the fingertips of the project manager that's watching those jobs, that project job really close.
Great. So there's been a rising demand in services, including installation, maintenance, repairs, and it's been challenging for many companies to implement. How do you see technology helping to really facilitate some of these services, Jean?
So as we've discussed several times, our engineer to order is basically built on Microsoft D365 Business Central, or formerly called Dynamics NAV. So our clients are first starting by the benefit of the Microsoft stack, right? They've got the Power BI, Excel, Outlook, things that they're all familiar with, in addition to the numerous things that are on AppSource, if those are a better fit for an organization. So it allows people to buy specifically what they need. An engineer to order company gets involved in many different aspects, as you just mentioned, installation, repairs, not just engineer to ordering product, but they often are in discrete manufacturing for some of the components that they might have to use in the repair. So the goal is to take all of these things and make them interconnected. So we've got one source of truth, and not just interconnected as something you might buy off AppSource, but understanding the full functionality of ETO, as we've done with the Sikich accelerators that are being included. So a system might get pretty complex. It might include the dashboard reporting that we've mentioned, visual scheduling components to make where items are dependent on each other within a process, and there might be a supply chain problem. Moving those things around with a visual scheduler can be much easier. Might involve AutoCAD and bringing information in and out. And then I think we also discussed items such as quality control and making sure those quality control components are recognized by other components within the system. And this is all done to improve the efficiencies and better provide customer service. The one source of truth, as Ron mentioned earlier, discussing that someone might be doing something in their own Excel tool, that's not one source of truth. That's someone's owning an island and then trying to get information to match different components of what you're doing on a daily basis. In this ETO system, everything should be pulled together under one roof.
So what if you have an industry solution that your business just can't live without? How would that fit into your solution ecosystem?
Yeah, that's pretty normal. There's going to be pieces of the puzzle that aren't part of the core Business Central ecosystem or the engineer to order ecosystem that we're bringing to the table with Business Central. And so that's again part of what makes the platform really nice. Microsoft has done a great job of making the system open. You can integrate it to just about anything. And this is something we do on almost every project, whether it's an e-commerce solution or a customer portal or a vendor portal or just some very unique best of breed solution that does something very well that your business needs, that you like, and can be part of this puzzle. We just put it together, and we leverage the APIs and platform that Microsoft has given us, some cases the Power Platform, and that's pretty normal. That's part of what we do.
So, and you kind of mentioned this a little bit in terms of, some of these ETO manufacturers might even be doing some more discrete volume-based manufacturing for some of the components they're doing. There's a whole spectrum of manufacturing: configure to order, make to order, engineer to order. When you're selecting the right ERP solution, what processes should you really be looking at to determine which solution is the best fit for your organization?
Right. So we've developed a pretty extensive selection process as we go through it. And I think one of the first things is to make sure you have the right team members on both the Sikich side and the customer side. Pulling in subject matter experts on the customer side, especially engineers, is I think critical to getting all of that discovery and the requirements documented in order to get to that end solution. So we make use of a solution architect on the Sikich side who's familiar with the products, for example, ETO, and all the components around that might be used. We then bring in addition to that individual, we bring in billable consultants such as Ron and Tim as subject matter experts on our side, and as people who will be operationally involved in what an implementation would be done. Once we confirm the fit and the estimate and the timeline, we often face one more challenge, which is other people are suggesting other products in the marketplace that we may or may not feel is a good fit for the organization, especially in the mid-market. So the challenge then becomes working with the customer to ensure we provide what is needed versus what they've been advised from other organizations. So some of the questions we really dig into, and it is an extensive process, but important questions to ask someone is, are you producing large machines? Do you have a complex or extensive bill of materials? How long is your production cycle? How many engineers are you employing? And are they tracking and billing their time against the project or the job? Swapping out parts is real important, understanding that process of not just how they do it today, but how they would like to do it. Is there an independent relationship in your manufacturing process? I think that came up a couple times earlier in our chat. Review of supply chain, your internal resources, and your work centers, and their capability is also important as we go through this process. And then do you have both standard, as I mentioned, repetitive produced, and custom components that need to be used?
Is there any specific advice that you would say, look, if you're looking to get a new ERP solution and you're an ETO company, make sure you look for these things when you're selecting a partner?
Maybe I could start with that. So I think getting to know your team is real important. And I like the fact that we combine account executives like myself in with Tim, the director of operations for the team, and Ron, who's actually developed a lot of this and done implementations, many over the years of his career. So you really get to know and understand the communication processes that we go through and how we do things. Another critical part is, what is your implementation methodology? Because hopefully it's repetitive, repeatable, and is going to gain efficiencies and has built in best practices over the years. So commonly asked questions, I think, of a lot of people we work with are, how many people are on your implementation team? So they can get an understanding of the size, depth, and breadth of that team that will be assisting them. I think the structure and the staffing of a help desk and how it's monitored and responsiveness to questions that are being answered is critical. Number of successful implementations. How many times have you done this? In this particular case, Microsoft rating or standing is also important, both past and present, and where are things headed moving in the future. And then project management software tools. And Ron and Tim could talk a little bit about the software tools that are in place supporting all of these things. And then, of course, stability of the firm that you're going to be working with.
Yeah, I think to kind of echo some of Jean's comments, the viability, the length of time the company's been in business for, that you're working with, and the size of the company. One thing that we've talked a lot about this Head Start approach and the fact that we have a methodology that we believe is repeatable and can bring best practices, but much like the engineer to order company, not every ERP project is the same project, right? And so the ability to say, here are the best practices, but as we're going through the process and working with our client, understanding where we need to adapt and be flexible with the approach of the ERP project and the final solution, if we need to, is really important as well. The ability to do that. We at Sikich have been working on the Business Central platform since literally the day it came out. We have a really great team of people that work on it, and in addition to that, you layer on the subject matter and industry expertise that we have with it. The fact that we have somebody like Ron on the team as our lead architect on these solutions speaks volumes to our abilities.
And I think you got to pay attention when you're looking at comparing one partner with another partner and interviewing they're interviewing you, you're interviewing them, what you're trying to build out as a solution. I think you need to understand if they are if they're really understanding the engineer order process and really how projects need to be built, how the costs have to be rolled up, things along those lines, versus just trying to cobble together a bunch of extensions that may have been available on the app source. If you don't have the ability to understand how those really go together and why they go together, and really, I think Tim mentioned just now how to suggest best practices amongst all these components and these functional areas, then you're probably going down the wrong path with the wrong partner.
Well, that's all the time we have today. Gene, Tim, Ron, thanks again for joining us today. And we hope you found this information useful as you evaluate your technology needs. If you have any questions or you'd like us to address, please shoot a note to info@sikich.com. Thanks again.